Welcome to the Writer's Game Podcast, where we help you magnify your voice and monetize your message. And now, let's get into the show.
Welcome to another episode of the Writer's Game Podcast, where we help you magnify your voice and monetize your message. I have a brother here that I'm actually very excited to get to know, somebody that I'm really excited for you guys to get to know as well, because Black male voices and Black authors and being able to share your voice on a stage, on a platform, in a community or around the world is very important. So I want this brother to introduce themselves, and then we'll get into today's podcast.
Thank you again for having me, man. I really appreciate it. My name is Haleem Washington. I am an author. 3 beautiful babies. I call them my book babies because my first book took 9 months for me to put out, to write and birth. So I started calling them book babies after that. The other ones came across a lot faster, but the other one's a lot more emotional.
Of course.
So,
what did it take for you to really, and I love the concept book babies, and I've definitely been there. It took me 3 years to finish my first book. And so that was definitely a long birth process. I feel like I was birthing an elephant. It took me 3 years to birth it. But then after that, it's kind of, you get your momentum, you start to learn your voice and everything. So could you talk to us about the process of really getting through your first book, and not necessarily the process from a tactical standpoint, but the process that you went through emotionally, spiritually, that helped you get over that?
Oh, no doubt, man. Back in like 2014, I was just a photographer working at doing that on the side, working at a hotel. You see in my bio, I started working at a hotel for $8 an hour the year prior. And I had moved up a little bit, but I was just still working at that hotel. And I went to a TD Jakes conference, and the lady there told me I was going to write a book. I was crying like a big fat baby because TD Jakes, he had just put his book out, Instinct. And he was talking about that and just saying that there's a lot of people that's in here that had, more potential than what they're realizing at the time. And the people who I came with all saw that. They felt like he was talking directly to me. And so when the lady told me that I was going to write a book, I never believed it. I never had any intentions on writing a book. But after I grew in my business and I started getting flown around the country, shooting motivational speakers, shooting people, telling their stories and things of that nature. And I'm like, I got a story. I had a hell of a story to tell. And I started speaking without the book. I just like, hey, I'm an entrepreneur. I created my own platform to start speaking. And everybody kept running me down about this book. You're speaking, but where the hell is the book? Where's the book? Where's the book? I'm like, all right, I'm going to try to write a book. And it just, as you said, it took you 3 years. And behind the scenes, it took about that amount of time. But when I got to the process, it took me 9 months. But it was definitely rough because my first book talks about, my marriage. It talks about my struggles with the church. Because at one point I got to being a deacon in a church. Just poverty, coming from Newark, New Jersey, growing up with a bunch of drug addicts in my household. And, being a felon myself, I was a felon up until last year, 2021, when I got pardoned. So I spent 18 years, into 2021 being a felon before I got a pardon. So just trying to navigate a career during that and being able to be successful, even though I had that scarlet F on my chest.
Ooh, this is, I really feel like this is going to be a great conversation. And anybody listening right now, I really hope that you caught at least something that he gave, this story of resiliency, the story of believing in himself, the story of what he said, that I was speaking the book before I even had the book, right? He was going around speaking, he was learning from, TD Jakes, he was listening to these messages. And one of the books that I just read, you brought up TD Jakes, is in January, I finished reading the book Crushing by TD Jakes.
I love it.
Talks about this, the process going from grapes to being able to wine as well. And they go through fermentation, they go through aging, and then they go through a crushing season and all of these different things. If you were to define this season of your life right now, because you've already went through your crushing, I can tell, what would you define this season of your life to be?
Oh, this is a rebirth for me. This is definitely a rebirth for me. Because, like you said, I definitely went through that crushing phase, and that was something for me. But I just relocated to Vegas. from South Carolina. Bringing my family over. I've done what I can do where I was. I mean, South Carolina as a state is small, especially mentally when it comes to entrepreneurship. I created a lot of things there. It was a great test market for that, but I'm someplace else now. I'm here in a bigger market, able to do bigger and better things. And a lot of my dreams has been realized. It was definitely tough because you have these great ideas and you're thinking outside the box, and people are like around there are like, nah, we good on that. I just want to stay where I am. But I forced it. I forced it to get to where it needed to go. And the pandemic was somewhat of a blessing business-wise because people in other parts of the country started listening to my story. When I wrote my second baby, You Won't Starve, I was in the process of going around speaking and training with I Won't Starve, my first book. But now I can't go nowhere. So I put my training literally in this book. And people were very open to getting it because what else were they going to do? They wasn't going to be able to go out nowhere, and they needed to get training. So people bought a lot of my second book for the training, and then they started booking me to do trainings virtually. But a lot of the trainings came from the West Coast. So I'm like, man, let me go ahead over here and see what it's about. And I literally relocated about 5 months ago. And, so it's a rebirth, starting all over again, but from a higher level with experience and from a bigger platform.
Talk to us about the importance of even having your story, right? I love what you're saying. And it's so much synergy here in this conversation. Oftentimes we want to train, but we feel like we have to show up places. And COVID has taught us that we're not sometimes going to be able to do that. But what you've done is not just put it in a book. You didn't just release a book. You created essentially a training manual and a transformation guideline, a blueprint, so that it could then be scaled and given to everyone across the world. Why was that important to do, though? Why is it important to at least put it out there?
Oh, man, that's a twofold answer for me. You talk about us as Black individuals. We don't read enough and we don't tell our stories enough. Our ancestors told stories and we read back in those days. And so using this medium, it's amazing. I'm trying to, raise my kids to do the same thing. And I'm encouraging a lot of people that look like us to continue to read because they always said the place all the knowledge is put in the books, but that's the way they're going to hide the knowledge from us because they wasn't worried about us reading. So I want to, debunk that myth that Black people don't read. When you mentioned that book, I got excited because I read that book. I read all of T.D. Jakes' books for the most part, and I'm an avid reader. So that was exciting for me to do that. And then again, it's in entrepreneurship, you have to know the word that everybody use, pivot. You have to know how to shift and pivot. A lot of times we try to go wider instead of going deeper. So I have a business model that's working. Yes, I'm not going to get another business and switch. I'm going to find a way to burrow further and further down that hole to find another out. And that's what it was. I wasn't going to switch. I was already training. I was already going around. What can I do? Well, you just wrote your first book. Well, use this same model to get to the people. They wanted you to come and fly different places to speak about I Won't Starve and speak about your story. Why wouldn't they want to get this training? And it worked. It just made sense.
You said something, right? You said the importance of Black voices, the importance of our stories, the freedom that we have once we actually release our stories. And interestingly, I always talk about this in trainings and to different people. I believe once we're writing our stories, there's a lot of baggage that comes up. There's a lot of things that we learn that we have to unpack. And it's an emotional process. It's literally like walking through the fire. But it's so interesting. Once we press publish and submit on that story, it's kind of like, it's refreshing. It's like, I got it all out. Walk me through your process and talk to people about, like, you're holding on to things that if you just write it, it would be done. Talk to us about that.
Oh, man. So, my first book, I Won't Starve, was definitely a roller coaster ride. And, again, I had issues with my in-laws. That was going to have to come up. So I had to have a frank conversation with my wife about that. Her and I had issues. That was going to have to come up. So her and I had conversations about that. My childhood, my family, majority of my aunts and uncles, literally all of them except for one, were strung out on drugs when I was growing up. So some of them are doing better now. And so they might not want individuals to know what they were doing back in those days, and things of that nature. So those conversations have to happen. You have to have, understanding the real meaning of telling your truth, because I hate when people say you're telling your truth, but you're telling everybody else's business. So that process was, I didn't want a tabloid, so going through that process, making sure my book is not a tabloid, it's not a dig, because I went through church issues. I had a church hit scenario, and I wasn't trying to bash my church. I never put that in that space, and I didn't. I didn't bash the people in the church, but I told my story. It's clear as day. And people who read it was like, wow, you could have went another way with that. I'm like, no, that wasn't for that. I didn't want a tabloid. I didn't want people talking about it. So going through all those emotions for me at that time was hell. Who's going to feel what way? Who am I going to be beefing with after this comes out? Who I don't care how they feel about it, and never thinking that I'm going to get a release, never thinking that at first. But when I did and finish it, like you said, I'm like, it's out. But then I immediately hired a life coach, and I immediately started going back to certain individuals, and this is per her instruction, and started fixing and mending relationships if they were there to be mended. But conversations that never were had, we had. And some people I'm talking to, some people I'm not. But still, it's a peace there. But it opened up the floodgates for me to actually attain that peace. And I don't think I would have ever attained it if I didn't write my first book.
Who would you define yourself as now, after you wrote the book, after you're a 3-time author, after you're stepping into your calling, after you've already went through your crushing season? Who would you define yourself as now versus who you defined yourself as prior to this?
Man, I always tell everybody, I'm a teacher. I'm a teacher. My calling now is to make sure that people that come behind me don't go through the hell I went through. That's truly what it is. That's what I Won't Starve is about. That's what You Won't Starve is about. That's what Morning Motivation is about. Man, I went through hell in entrepreneurship because I was forced into it. I went to a college. I graduated with honors, and I couldn't get a job because I became a felon at a young age. And so I had to fumble through entrepreneurship and figure it out, because back in my day, I'm 40 years old, be 41 in a couple of months, entrepreneurship wasn't prevalent like it is now. You in college talking about doing business, you're lazy. You want to do a business, you don't want to go to work. And so fighting that stereotype, I didn't go away to do a long prison sentence. So when you come out of prison, they have programs for you to get jobs. When you don't do prison time like that, it's no program. You're out here. So I've done amazing work, and I never talked about it because I kept my head down. I remember going into the military and doing work and not saying anything, hoping they don't ask me to do a background check. But I know I would have never been able to get a job there. But they would pay me as a contractor. The county, the state, police departments, all these places, not background checking the contractor. But if I'd applied for a job, I would have never got it. But I'm making 6 figures working for these major corporations all through my career, and I'm doing it with my head down. So these things, I don't want nobody to go through that, man. I don't want nobody to go through that. So I want to tell people, if this was a pothole, I want to fill it up so your ride is a little bit more smoother. If it's a cliff there, I want to help you build a bridge so that you can come across it. I don't want you to go through what I went through, because if you actually love somebody, you're going to try to protect them, and you're not going to want them to go through the hell that you went through.
I love that, man. I love that service mindset, right? I think that one of the things that's interesting, man, because, I graduated college, went to, work within the big firm, and then got fired and laid off in 8 months. And I got thrown into entrepreneurship. And a lot of people ask, like, they see the success now. They see what we've been able to accomplish now, but y'all don't see the moments when I was literally living on an air mattress with my 1-year-old son trying to figure it out, but I still had to show up for the world. You don't see the different battle that I had with my parents. Like, why don't you just go get a job, or all of these different things? But it's not that easy, and the times have shifted. And it's so powerful hearing somebody's testimony and how you've not just overcome these different things, but you've actually written about it and you've been able to stand in it. And I think a lot of times, a lot of people aren't authentic in their life.
Yeah, oh my God.
Because the story that they've been telling themselves is a victim story instead of a conqueror story, right? So could you talk to us about how writing a book is one thing. That's one part of the puzzle. Owning your voice and owning your actual truthful story is a completely other part of the story.
Yes.
How did you transition over to I'm an author to I am the author of this story?
Oh man. You know, when I changed my title at one point, well, it is now, to lifestyle coach and mindset mentor. And I did that because I walked through my path. And yes, I was always a hustler. I had to do it. But it wasn't till I started taking my craft seriously and started actually understanding that I had to grow into personal development. So my goal was, when I shifted my mindset with hustle, I knew hustle couldn't go on a resume anymore. And you can't put hustle on a resume. I had to actually be able to stand for something and say, this is what I do. And so I went ahead and started doing better, doing professional development, reading, joining groups, getting better at being a man, as well as a talent, as well as a business owner. Because I knew everything, because before I was always the first one to jump out. So it seemed like I knew everything, but I'm jack of all trades, master of none. And so when I decided to start walking the path and say, okay, put an actual plan in place, it's cute to go ahead and just jump out and show that you got the guts to do it, but can you put a plan in place? Mindset shift, did that. Okay, you really want to work and be this level of entrepreneur? It ain't just a skill. You're gonna have to switch your lifestyle. You're gonna have to hang amongst these people, because these people book people that they know. So you're gonna have to hang amongst these people, which means you're gonna have to fix your dress. You're not gonna have no big corporate people coming to the hood to do no business with you. So you're gonna have to invest in yourself and put your office downtown in the middle of the city, even if you got to spend more money. And that's how you're gonna get these people to come and go to the places where they go. That's what you have to do. So switching the lifestyle, making sure that your lifestyle was where you supposed to be, so that you can be aligned with the individuals you want to do business with. And then the personal development piece was, hey, it's hard work beats talent when talent don't work hard. How are you going to get better? How are you going to be better? Somebody, you said we in college, somebody graduate every year. Somebody graduate every year and going to take less money than you. So how are you staying going higher and higher and higher? And so now this getting me to reading 70 books a year over the last 4 years. This getting me to write my own books. It's getting me to teach, go fly to conferences, investing, making sure I'm better, looking into coaching. I thought I was uncoachable. I was around the wrong people. But when I got around other people who's successful, I'm like, man, I need to know. I got stuff I need to know, and being humble. But the most important thing is owning my faults. It's very, very easy to blame people. Everything I put in my book was for fact. What was done to me in church, what was done to me with family members, all that stuff was no lies. But that was years ago. What am I doing now? Some of them aren't even around. Some of them didn't even remember what they did. So if I held on to that, there was no way I can go forward. And I had to take responsibility. And that's not just for a man, that's for an adult. Like, first, you got to take responsibility of your own faults and where you are. You take responsibility of where you are in your life. Once I learned that through personal development, that put me in the space to be the author of my story and to be able to, understand that I'm not just the author, the architect here on earth for my own story.
I love that. I hope somebody is listening to something. I think one of the biggest things that you just said that really spoke to me, because I tell people this all the time, is that the people that you want to get in front of, you have to appeal to those people. And your persona and your personal brand is in alignment with what you wear, how you look, where you are, where you shop, where you eat, all of these different things. And I think one of the things in our culture is that we don't want to have this code switching mentality or Uncle Tom mentality. But in order for you to get in some of these rooms, in order to truly shift your community, you have to make some adjustments and you have to make some changes to being able to get invited into these conversations. What was the toughest change that you had to make? And not just change, growth that you had to make to being able to really make shifts in your personal career and then also professional career?
Oh man, that's a great question. What happened for me was it was easy for me to be a chameleon. You know, I'm a Gemini, so I already know how to, I already got two sides to me. But no, it was easy for me to be a chameleon. That was my whole thing. I look at my son, it's 8 years old, and I see a second coming to me. He's so peaceful, such a peaceful kid. But I grew up in Newark, New Jersey in the late 80s, early 90s. If you're going out on the street, you can't be as peaceful as he was. So even though I was as peaceful as he was, but once I decided that was the route I was going to take, I had to be something else. Never wanted to hurt anybody, never wanted to be in that situation, but I had to be what I had to be. So when I came to college, I wasn't college school material, at least I felt that way. I wanted to go to college for basketball. That didn't work. But I got in there, I became what I needed to become. I never thought about going to church, but I became what I needed to become. It wasn't until I actually became me is what grew me, because it was easy for me to make the shift to, let me get this office, let me put on a suit and tie, let me, come and talk to these people and go to these functions and start working with these corporate entities. But it wasn't until when I created my business, I Won't Starve, and I would bring them to Saturday conferences, and I'm dressed like this here with my brand, and I would make them dress the same way. So I would have bank managers who are partners with me come in t-shirts with their bank logo on it and jeans. And I would have city officers and county officers and state officers come into my function eating Subway sandwiches. So I want them to spill mustard on their shirt, just like my clientele, because my clientele is afraid to talk to y'all, but they won't be afraid to talk to you guys if you look like they're equal. But if you got your three-piece suit on, they're going to be afraid to have a conversation with you to help their business. So I strategically said, we're going to have all our events on Saturday, and we're going to have it in the morning. So you don't got to put your three-piece suit on. And we're going to have sandwiches for lunch, because you can't get cute when you're eating a sandwich. You know what I'm saying? We're not going to give you the hors d'oeuvres. We're going to give you the stuff. We're going to have the aunties come out, and they're going to cook. They're going to set it up. And you're going to have to be comfortable. Mm-hmm. When I became comfortable with who I was, I literally just had a speaking engagement with some of them back home and back in South Carolina. And they asked about my brand. And the people don't look like that. They say, what's that? This is my brand. I'm not out here wearing anybody else's brand. This is J. Haleem or I Won't Starve or something like that. But I made them through being flexible, because I feel like that's the number one thing you got to have as an entrepreneur. You have to be flexible. I gave them what they needed in the beginning. And because I was able to give them what they needed, they was able to give me the latitude to be myself. And that was the greatest gift I could have got.
That's amazing, man. And I know we've talked a lot about your books and the I Won't Starve movement that you're leading. But for somebody right now that hasn't really picked it up, for somebody right now that hasn't really known or followed the conversation, could you, open us up about really your 3 books, talk to us about those books, and then also the I Won't Starve movement?
Well, my first book, I Won't Starve, again, my first baby. Again, I Won't Starve is my mantra. I came up with it in 2014 when I actually left that job. And again, I was moving around because I started with $8. By the time I left, I was making like $14. Wasn't nothing, but it seemed like me and my family was getting back on our feet. The year prior, as soon as my son was born, the same day, they repossessed my car that night. The next day, they literally put eviction notice on the door. We're going through it. I'm selling our goods at the flea market, the local flea market, just to make money. And I'm going to the local Salvation Army, which we call Harvest Hope down there, for our groceries every Wednesday. So I had to make decisions, so I took the $8 an hour job. But when people knew that and they saw I was leaving that job, they was like, yo, man, you crazy. You just getting back on your feet. But when I went to that conference earlier that year, I was convicted. I've done things way bigger than making $14 an hour. I won't starve. I will be fine. And that's when the hashtag was created. And I put it on social media and I kept doing it. And the church followed. And of course, naturally, the business and then the book followed. But I just believe that. And the mantra has a quote. And the quote is, the platform you leap from is more important than the platform you land on. And what that means is you have talents within you. We already do. And what your talents create a platform for you. And then if you nurture those talents and that platform, wherever you go, you're going to be just fine. Whether it's off your job, whether it's to another state, another city, another job place, you're going to be fine if you tap into those skills and you have the right platform. And you can always continue to grow and build your platform. But it's about the platform that you leap from more important than the platform that you land on. So that's what will happen with I Won't Starve. You Won't Starve again. I always wanted to write this book, but I written it prematurely because of COVID. But You Won't Starve again, we focused on 3 different generations, which was the Gen Zers, millennials, and baby boomers. The number one word for this book is opportunity. It's opportunity. I wanted to show people different opportunities because for me personally, when I was a Gen Z's age, nobody told me the opportunity of entrepreneurship. They didn't sell that to me. People in my college knew I had a felony and they still were trying to send me to go get a job. And if they would have told me, hey, go this route and let me help you go this route, where would I have been? I would have probably not fell in some of these potholes. But I had to figure it out on my own. And so for me with kids that's getting out of college right now or getting out of high school, I want to introduce them to that opportunity properly. For my millennials, you at work for the last 10, 15 years doing something that you might not love. You're miserable at this job. You want to do something else, but you don't know that it's an opportunity in entrepreneurship for you because you think that this is it. This is all I got to do. And that's not the truth. You know, you can successfully switch if you follow the principles that I've laid down in this book. It switched from being a full-time employee to a full-time entrepreneur. And then my baby boomers, nobody's more talented than this generation. You've been working for 30 years. You know, nobody knows whatever market that you come from better than you, but you only know how to do it for someone else. You don't know how to make that money for yourself. So you end up working a second job because you didn't, retire with enough money. But you don't not know, you could have came out and went right back to the same place that you worked for 30 years and didn't get a 6-figure salary from them as a consultant, right now and run it up. But you don't know how to start a consulting business. You don't know how that works. You don't know how to work social media. You don't care about how business looks these days. But it's an opportunity for you to still, at 65, take the next 10 years and start going towards, being a millionaire or just being even more comfortable than you was perceived to be when you retired. And my last baby, Morning Motivation, you would agree that we had a lot of horrible, information being spewed through this pandemic. And when it comes to motivation, telling people throw away 2020, throw away this year, this is crappy, there's all these complaints. But I told people in this book, COVID-19 is not our first crisis. And it's sure enough not going to be our last crisis. How do we stay consistently motivated through whatever crisis? Because again, somebody still died from AIDS. Somebody still lost a family member. Somebody lost their business to something else and didn't have anything to do with COVID. Somebody's sick now. How do you still stay motivated? Because the bills didn't stop. They're right on schedule. Your responsibilities never stop. They're right on schedule. So how every morning you're going to continuously get up and be consistently motivated no matter what the crisis you're facing. I still to this day, since I started, almost 2 years now, I do morning videos called Morning Motivation. But I put them in a book since, I'm an author now. I said I wanted to put this in a book. So, because, it's a timeline thing on social media. People might miss it. So I wanted to I captured 11 of my principles of motivation in this particular book for people to always have with them.
I love this. And the intentionality of your whole journey is very impressive. And it's really inspiring. And one, I really appreciate you not stopping and not being a statistic, because there's somebody right now that's going to listen to this, or there's so many people that have read your book or been gifted your book or have attended your trainings. And one thing that I've learned is that sometimes your greatest impact is the person that never leaves you a testimonial.
Yes.
And
yes, absolutely right.
When we write books or when we drop content and all these different things or give speeches, because it's the person that has shifted, their life has been transformed, but they may have just not told you.
Yeah.
But I want one of my final questions for you is, if you could leave one message to every single soul in the world that they had to get, they had to learn, and they had to feel in 60 seconds, what would you say?
Again, I got to go back to my quote: the platform you leap from is more important than the platform you land on. That's on everything. That's in our office. That's on, our emails. That's all over the place, because again, a lot of times we're looking outward for an inward solution. Where I always say, and I say it in my book, you are the help. The help is not coming. You are the help. Somebody's waiting on you. Your family's waiting on you. Your church is waiting on you. Your job is waiting on you. Your community is waiting on you. We're looking for some savior. Even in the Bible, our savior was among us. And when a savior left, he left the spirit in you. He didn't leave it and take it with him. He left it with you. So everything that you have is within you. So we learn how to ignite the fire that's within us, and actually the skill sets that's within us. We've all learned something. If we want to nurture that and build that platform from there where we leap to, they just got to look out for us, because we bring in power. I wasn't afraid to come to Las Vegas because I understood what the platform I'm leaping from. You ain't got to, I'm coming with something that's official. So if you just understand that the platform that you build, the platform that you decide to leap from, if you shore it up and certify it the way it's supposed to be and solidify it, wherever you go, you're going to be just fine.
That's powerful, man. And, Jay, like, I really appreciate you. I really do. Oftentimes we get on podcasts, we do all these different things, but we're not the ones impacted, because it's like it's the job for us. We're trying to ask the question, we're trying to create for other people. We're trying to create for the community. We're trying to show up for everyone else. But sometimes we just got to take a step back and really just listen, and really just be in the moment and be present. And I thank you for pouring into my cup today, because oftentimes we're always on the other end, pouring. Yeah. But we need those people to be able to pour into us as well. This is one thing, this is the last question. It's always another question when you say something. Oftentimes we don't get to say the very things that we wish we could say. Right. We deliver that speech, and it's like after the speech, when we're reflecting on it, it's like, I wish I would have said that. We deliver a podcast, like, man, I wish he would have asked this, or whatever the case may be. So I always like to ask this question, because you never know what someone would want to give or pour into someone else's cup. What is something that you're often not asked, or something that you often don't get the chance to say, that you would like to say?
Oh man, actually the title of my next book is called We Won't Starve. And the subtitle is The Power of Collaboration. And so what I want to say to everybody is that we're better together. We're better together. And I gotta say, especially my Black people, we're better together, man. We gotta stop trying to fight this fight alone. We gotta stop trying to do the same thing that our brother is doing without our brother or our sister. We have to collaborate so we can get to where we need to get to 10 times faster. I promise you, if you do the numbers, when one person's doing something, if it's going to take you 3 years, if you get 3 people, it'll probably take you 3 months. So we have to not ignore the research, not ignore the data, and not ignore the strength that we have working together. This is a learned behavior. This is not something that we do. When we were kids, we had our BFFs, our friends, our homeboys, our squad. If we had $5, everybody had $5. Or if everybody had $5, we put our 15 together, and we get more candy, more junk food, go further, do whatever. It's the same thing when we doing what we're doing right now. We have to learn about collaboration, master the art of collaboration, and start in homes, start in your circle, start in your local community, and let's take this thing out. This is the only way that we're going to gain ground and change the narrative for our people, is if we collaborate.
I love that, man. Thank you so much for everything that you've given us today, everything that you've blessed us with. Where can the people find you?
Everything is imjhaleem.com. jhaleem.com. My social media is imjhaleem. And just put J Haleem in your Google search and I'll pop up. But definitely, everything is my name, jhaleem.com. I am J Haleem on all social media platforms. I'm having some fun. I got a word for you every day, every morning. Got a morning motivation. So if you not feeling well, or you want to hear something positive, go ahead on there. You want to hear something every day, no matter what you're going. You gonna hear something positive. Join I Won't Starve Nation on Facebook. We're giving out good stuff there as a private group, but we definitely are giving out a lot of information. And lastly, shameless plug, I have my podcast, Starve Talk, which stands for Stand Tall and Reclaim Victory Every Day. Just really trying to continuously motivate individuals by bringing other people who have that same type of I Won't Starve story and testimony, because we don't want to keep hearing about your yacht and all that other stuff. I heard a video of Tupac said, okay, we know you're a super billionaire and you got 18 houses, you know what I'm saying? But we want to talk about the person who's starving, or who don't have a house, or who didn't have a house and made something happen. So all we can do is create our own platforms. And so Starve Talk has been a platform for people who went through and been able to stand tall and reclaim victory every day. And I want to showcase them.
I love this, man. Thank you so much. Anybody listening right now, please go follow this brother. Please go subscribe to his podcast. Please go follow, and then do business with this man as well. Whether you are the gatekeeper, whether you are the decision maker, or that you're in relationship with the decision maker, connect with this brother and be able to transform your life by allowing him to transform it for you. It's a beautiful thing when we bring on different authors, when we bring on different voices, when we bring on different people that not just have a testimony, but also have guides to transformation, a guide of resiliency, a guide of how you continue to battle with that inner work so that you could be able to do good outer work as well, how you have to remain excellent in everything that you do, but understanding that in order for you to be able to get into some of these rooms, there's going to be some shifts, there's going to be some changes, and you have to understand how to be a chameleon as well. So this is the Writers Game Podcast. We're on another episode where we help you magnify your voice and monetize your message. And we'll see you guys soon.